Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we are going to talk about how to play the Fox Experiment by Pandasaurus Games. This is a new game. As the making of this video, it's being delivered to Kickstarter backers, but pre-orders are already up on Pandasaurus's website, so retail editions will be delivering soon. Now, setup is pretty straightforward, so I've already gone ahead and set up the game. A few things to note is that you don't ever put in a supply token on this first spot. Anybody that goes here is basically claiming first player the next round. And there is an A and B side to your sponsors over here. So the top two are always going to be on their A side and the bottom two are always going to be on their B side. Other than that, everything is very straightforward. You know, these cards match with the background, and obviously these tokens fit on those spots. You always want to make sure you have room for enough male and female cards depending on your player count. So I've essentially set up this game for, say, either a solo game or a 3-player game, which plays with the same amount of foxes. So you want to make sure you have a space above your board and, you know, space kind of around your board. You're going to be drawing and stuff. So this is a game set up and ready to go. You also want to make sure you have your dice nearby because you're going to be picking up and adding those quite often throughout the game. So at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of every round, and the game consists of 5 rounds. So you can see each one of these patches represents a round in the game. At the end of every round, somebody's going to be placing a fox on here, and so you can see the rounds count down or count up. At the beginning of each round, in player turn order, you are going to take turns drafting 3 things. 2 of them are going to be your male and female fox, your mama and your papa fox. You cannot pick 2 males, you cannot pick 2 females. It has to be a male and a female. And the third thing is going to be your position on the supply track here, which is this. Now, in a 1 to 3 player game, we're going to ignore this last spot here, but this spot is open. All the other spots have benefits that come with them, supplies. So if I were to place my gear token here, I would get 1, 2, and even this one that's permanently there, 3 wilds tokens, or friendly tokens, friendliness tokens. But if I want to if by going here, I'm essentially saying I'm going to be last because nobody can go behind me. Or if I put my token here, I don't get any bonuses, I don't get any supplies, but I've guaranteed myself the ability to go first the next round, which means I'm picking my first fox, whether it be a male or a female first, or I could pick my choice of supplies, whatever it may be. That is what turn order represents. In the first round of the game, you're just randomly picking turn order or, deciding based on friendliest pet or something like that. But after that, turn order is determined by where you decide to put your gear down. And obviously, if you wait and draft your foxes first, then you're not necessarily going to get your choice of a spot on the supply track. But for now, we'll just throw that there so you remember that that's where your gear token is used. After you have completed the initial phase, selection phase, we're going to move on to the breeding phase. But before we do that, you have a chance to upgrade your player board. So this is a great time to zoom down here and take a look at just our individual player board. So everybody's player board is the same except for the color of the foxes and the color of the little backgrounds. That just represents that I am the purple player. So I'm going to have the purple cards. I'm going to have the purple fox meeples. This just helps me keep track of my players and my foxes. But other than that, everybody's track is exactly the same. Now you'll notice that these first 3 spots here are already checked off. They're already filled up. This means that I can breed 1 fox each breeding phase. I can basically have 1 child. My 2 parents can have 1 child. I start the game with 1 study. I can pick 3 and choose 1 from those 3. And I always start the game with 1 wild or friendliness die. This is essentially a wild die that can become any other trait die. However, you want to start filling up your track here because you can get more friendliness dice. You can unlock sponsors. We'll talk about those more in a little bit. You can start breeding more foxes. So if you've unlocked this one here, you can breed a pair of foxes every round. So your mama and your papa have 2 children, or they could even come down here and have 3 children every round. This just gives you more chances to roll out your dice and optimize your friendliness score, which is going to give you bonuses and is part of the name of the game here. Also, you can unlock more studies to score on, and I think I covered everything actually. Now, how do we fill up this track, and why would we be able to do that, or how would we be able to do that after that initial selection phase? Well, lots of the supply tokens like this one here are going to give us trait tokens that match. All right, so there's one example, or here's one example that would give us a science card and this spots token. These represent the 4 kind of friendliness traits that they found to be more appealing in foxes. So you have your curl of a tail, you have your bark, which is a friendly bark, not a big deep woof, but like a yip. The ears, are the ears floppy or not, which would make them look more like dogs. And then spots, are they going to have spots, or are they just all one coat? So these are the 4 trait tokens that you could receive throughout the game. These also match the dice that you're essentially rolling throughout the game. We can grab a blue one here. So this is what you're going for. You're going for the most of these traits throughout the game with your foxes. But as you gather these trait tokens, either by breeding a very well-rounded or high-scoring fox, you're going to get these tokens, or from the supply track, at any point in time, if you have 2 of the same. So let's say I did take that purple tail, and I now have 2 purple tail tokens. I can spend these to mark off on my track. Now I have to work from left to right, but I can work down any row I choose to, and I don't have to wait until I have completed a column before I can move to the next row. So I could completely fill up and get my maximum number of green friendliness dice if I wanted to before I moved on to anything else. So this is part of the strategy of the game, is how do you choose to go about working down your personal board here. For example, sponsors, one may think, well, why would I not wait until the very end to go get some sponsors? Well, if you're the first person to go get a sponsor, you get the supply token associated with them. Other people can pair up with that sponsor, but they're not going to get that extra benefit. So when you turn in your 2, you use 1 to fill in your spot on your board, and you put the other one back in the supply. So then at the end of the game here, your board may look something like this. This isn't very filled out. Usually you've got more like that, but this is how you fill out your board. And some of the sponsors do give you victory points based on whether you have completed columns, completed rows, whether you have certain patterns, or for example, this pattern where you have 1 of each color, and it doesn't have to be, they don't have to be adjacent to each other, but those are the type of things the sponsors are going to score on. So paying attention to the colors, the actual color tokens you're putting down, does make a difference in the game. But at the end of the day, it is your choice. All right, so the next phase of the game is the breeding phase. At this point, you will have selected a mama and a papa fox, a male and a female, and you're ready to make some babies. So you're going to take your personal deck here. You can see that the backs are very different, and your personal deck is mixed up. So you're not quite sure whether you're going to have a male or a female pup, but you'll just reveal the top card here, and we see that we're going to end up with a male fox. Now, you can give this fox a name. We're going to call him Red. All right, the name does not matter. Now, what you're going to do then is gather your dice pool. So, Zabamvbi, or however you pronounce that here, is going to give us 2 blues and a red, and Kukla here is giving us a red and a brown. We also always start the game, remember, with 1 friendly or wild die. If we've unlocked other ones, we would get to add those in as well. But seeing this is the first round of the game, this is all we got. We're going to take these and we're going to roll them out. Now, generally, you do not get to re-roll, but some science cards may allow you to re-roll or flip or reorient a die. But in general, what you see is what you get. So what we're attempting to do here is maximize getting the most amount of completed icons on the dice. So you can see here, this one is a 1.5 icons. This one is a sole 1. So right now I have 1, 2.5. The half ones don't get us anything. So we're stuck right there. This one is 2 halves, but those 2 halves can't be combined into one. So I could take one of these halves here and make a single. So now here I have 1.5, but again, the half doesn't do anything. Here, the half doesn't do anything. And then I have my wild die that has 2 halves. Now those 2 halves can become anything I need them to be. So I could do, for example, this. I could put them in between here, and now I have 1, 2 blue symbols. I could even do something like this and have a completed blue symbol and a completed brown symbol. Now, how you go about deciding which, how you should choose how to spend your wild die depends on your study card. So you're always going to start the game with one of these study cards, and throughout the game, as by filling out your player board, you can earn more. This is how you're going to score the big chunks of points in the game, is by completing these studies. You can see if you make it all the way to the end here, you will gain 10 victory points. If you do this 4 times, that's 40 victory points right off the bat, and that's already a very good start to a score. Now what this is telling me here is that I want to breed a fox with double ear traits and a single bark trait, at least at first. Then eventually I'm going to want to double my ear traits, keeping up with my bark trait, and then I'm going to maximize my ear traits and double my bark traits. I'm not concerned in this study about tails or spots. I'm only focused on ears and barks. So knowing that, I'm going to set this right here next to red. Knowing that, we want to maximize our brown right now and our blue. The problem is that I'm not going to get 2 browns because I only ended up with 1 brown die. There's only so much I can do, but more than likely I would do something like this. So I now have 2 reds, 2 blues, and 1 brown. So I would come over here to red, and I would say, okay, he's got 2 reds. So I'm going to put an X in the box and a dot in the circle. I'm going to do the same thing for my blues, an X in the box, a dot in the circle, and I'm going to put just an X in the box because I only got 1 brown. Now, for every X in a box that I have put down, that means that red as a father, so in the next generation, red is going to be put up on display, and he's going to be able to be selected by any player, not just you. He's going to roll a brown, a blue, and a red die. The dots, however, that you fill in are trait tokens that you're going to get instantly. So for just breeding red, I'm going to get a spot and a bark token that I can then upgrade my player board with. Sorry. This is my completed fox now. So what you do is you count up all of the marks you have made on the board. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Red's friendliness score is a 5. Unfortunately, at this same time, we would also compare red to our study. Does red meet the criteria of our first level of our study? Unfortunately, he does not. He has double blues, but just a single brown. If he did, however, meet our criteria, we could take one of our fox meeples here that stand up very nicely, and we would cover up that first level of the study. Then in future rounds, we would be able to hopefully unlock this one, unlock this one. At the end of the game, the furthest you've made it down a study are the points you're going to score. These are not cumulative, so we wouldn't score 17. We'd only score 10. And only a fox can only complete 1 level of 1 study each generation. So even if I had somehow blown it out of the water here and maxed red out in browns and blues, he could not just have blown through this study all by himself. The best he can do is complete the lowest level still open at that time. But I would keep the study card, all right? I would keep any green dice that I have rolled and any trait tokens. So these would stay with me. I would return all these dice. I would return my mama and papa here to their various discard piles. And all of these guys are also going to go away. So this generation has moved on. I like to think that they just have retired. They haven't died. They're just not of breeding age anymore. And then you're going to put your card out there with everybody else's. So this whole process, this whole breeding step, which is the biggest chunk of time in the game, can be done simultaneously with all other human players. That's one of the beauties of this game, is that increasing the player count does not necessarily increase the length of time of the game. It lengthens the selection phase just a tad, but that's pretty much it. The bulk of the game is all done at the exact same time. At this time, everybody would put their foxes into the selection area, because they're going to become the parents, optional parents for the next round, but you're also going to compare to see who has the highest friendliness score. If somehow red did have the highest friendliness score, I would take my pup at one of my fox meeples and put it here. At the end of the game, I'm going to score 2 points. Now, multiple foxes can be in this spot as long as we've all tied, but anybody that is lower than us, anybody that did not tie for the most friendly fox, gets this bonus here on the bottom. So everybody else, all the losers of that round, would get a single friendliness token. Now, these tokens are exactly like the dice, or work exactly like the dice, but once you spend them, you lose them. You're always going to get this die back, and sometimes this die could be something like that, where it's just a pure symbol all on its own. But for the most part, it's just going to give you a lot of ways to complete other ones. This one is always just a half. It always can be anything you want it to be, but once you've used it, it goes back into the supply and you have to earn them again. But that's kind of your consolation prize, per se, if you don't end up scoring the friendliest fox. I failed to mention it, but basically anytime you collect trait tokens at the end of that phase, you have the option to upgrade your player board. So at the end of the breeding phase, when I collected these tokens, if I say had now collected 2 reds, I could have used those to say gain another study. I'd put one there and discard one. So putting your foxes out and checking friendliness scores is going to be the administration portion of the game. So this is phase 4. So we had the breeding phase, which was phase 2, and then we had the research phase, which was checking your fox against your study. That was phase 3. Now we're on to phase 4, which is the administration phase, and we're basically just clearing off the board, getting ready for the next round. Scoring the friendliest fox is the biggest action that you're going to take. At this point, we would say, okay, you're a male, and we would fill in any other empty spaces up to the maximum number of foxes we should be having. So in this case, we would have to bring out 3 new dads from the generic pile. You would make sure that all the previous generation foxes have been put back here. If later on down the road, somebody's fox, my purple one here, gets left out and not chosen, it would just come back to me. I can erase Red's statistics. I can keep him. He's going to have to be erased at the end of the game, but he's not going to come back. Once a generation has passed, they're no longer eligible for breeding. So you're going to refresh your mamas and papas selection here. You're also going to pull off any of these supply tokens that weren't chosen, and you're going to then give back the gear tokens, but you're also going to rearrange. That's why they give you these nice tiles here. Well, these are the upgraded tiles, but they give you cardboard versions in the standard game, so that you can then rearrange who would be first. Maybe I ended up here and I ended up second. So you would pass these around before you took the gears off to make sure everybody knows what order they're going in. And then you're going to refresh this track here. Boom, boom, boom. It would look like that in a 1 or 3 player game. Let's just pretend I've filled out the females there. And that's it. We are ready to move on to round 2 in this case. So it's really quite simple. You're just attempting to continuously breed a better fox than before, and hopefully get a nicer and friendlier fox to breed with next time. But again, this whole drafting phase, the selection phase, where you're not quite sure who you're going to go after, who's the most important for you, and what is your turn order. Are you going first or do you have to wait? Does make a difference. Let's talk about some of these other cards here that I didn't really cover, and then you pretty much know everything there is to know about the game. So you have your study cards here. Anytime you gain new study cards from your player board, you're going to draw 3, select 1. The other ones can just go on the bottom of the deck. You also have your science cards here. So anytime you earn a science card, whether it be from a supply token or a permanent spot here, you're going to just gain the top card. Now, these have 2 ways to be useful to you. If you still have them at the end of the game, they're worth 1 point. But you can use them at any point in time to do what it says on the card here. So let's see. After rolling all pups, keep one of your pups as a parent for the next generation. This is a great science card, because if you produce an amazing pup, but you failed to do well on the supply track, you can actually play this card. You would put it up here on the discard pile, and you would just let everybody know, hey, I've got the After Rolling All Pups card. I get to keep red as a parent. Let's just look at another card here. After rolling a pup, change 1 die to any face. So again, these are the cards that are going to help you manipulate the dice and kind of change the rules in your favor. So those are science cards. And then you have your sponsor cards. Sponsor cards are going to score at the end of the game. So again, you could wait until the end of the game to fill out this portion of your player board, but you might lose out on these supply tokens. You're still always going to get a science card, but these tokens may be useful to you at the end of the game. So just for an example, I'm not going to cover all of them because all of this is explained in the rule book, but if you ever create, for example, such a fox that you go off the end of the card here, you start collecting these point stars. This just means that you collected, so you created a trait so good that you couldn't collect any more trait tokens, so you started getting these stars. These are normally worth 1 point. This guy makes them worth 2 points. This guy gives you a point for every brown ear token you either have or is on your player board at the end of the game. This guy or this girl here is going to give you 2 points for every matching trait tokens that are above and below each other on your track here. And this lady here, she's going to give you 2 points for every one of these, every one of your foxes you have on the friendliest pup track. That's just an example of these. Again, these are double-sided, so here she is giving points for purple trait tokens on the other side. So there is a decent variety in sponsors. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything you need to know to play the Fox Experiment. This is a game you can play solo, and it's a game that when you play with 2 players, you need to implement a small portion of the AI to simulate a 3-player game. Actually, it's a 4-player game. But I'm going to talk about that in my next video. So if you're interested on how to control the AI and get that going for a 2-player game or a solo game, feel free to check out my next video. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. But hopefully this video has given you everything you need to know to sit down and play the Fox Experiment. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.